flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Present.
Trustee Caprio?
Present.
Trustee Rogers? Present. Trustee Sweet?
Present.
Trustee Varian?
Present.
Mayor Yukich?
Present.
Trustee Nancy Troitsky is absent. Congratulations on the birth of her baby.
Okay. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Mr. Mayor, just on the one, maybe we can pull the one item up, or should I let's just pull it off right now. So item J5, we'll pull out the agenda to discuss in executive session.
Can you talk in your mic?
Item J5, I'd like to pull it off the agenda so it can be discussed in executive session. Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, do we have to add personnel discussion to the executive session?
When it comes time to go into executive session, you can include that.
Okay, looking for an approval of minutes.
No.
Approval of minutes, first one for June 17th, 2015 for a special village board meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I'll abstain.
Because you weren't here.
Right.
Okay. All right. Second one would be October 6, 2015 for another special village board meeting.
I motion to approve October 6th.
Do I have a
second.
Second. Rogers. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Last one for October 13th, 2015, special village board meeting.
I so move to approve October 13th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. They all pass. Schedule of accounts payable. Does anyone have any questions on the accounts payable? We're going to have treasurer's report in a few minutes. But is everyone okay with the statement? Okay. All right, so I need a motion to approve the schedule of accounts payable for the period of September 25th to October 29th, 2015.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
That one should be roll call.
Okay. Madam Clerk, voice please. Roll call.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Varian?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda is appointment. We have to consider the appointment of John Bobbitt as historical advisor to the Environmental Committee. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, I just wanted to say, Mr. Lobick is not part of the Environment Committee, but he's one of our advisors. And he believes there is a need to capture and distribute historical information about our community to our residents. So that's why he would like to volunteer as a historical type of advisor. And under the direction of the Environment Committee, advance historical information to our website and within the community.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Here. Yes.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Barrier?
Aye. Okay. Next is reports and communications from the mayor and other offices. I'm going to go last. If we can start out with Trustee Barrier.
I have nothing to report, Mayor.
Thank you. Trustee Costa.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple quick items. First, with fall upon us here, of course, the leaves are falling off the trees. Just a reminder to all the residents that we do have a leaf burning ordinance. In order to burn leaves, you must obtain a permit from the village hall. When you go into the village hall to get your permit, the staff will take a look and see if your lot meets all the requirements for the ordinance. So please get a leaf burning permit before you do any burning. Also, in the last week or so, there's been some, anybody that's on social media seeing that there's been warnings out about burning leaves because of the high winds. So again, let's use our judgment and go according to ordinance. If winds are too strong, too high, please do not burn. It becomes a fire hazard. Also, within the past week or so, I believe it was in one of the local Will County newspapers, Joliet, probably in ours too, I believe, that Will County now is one of the first communities or one of the first areas in the Chicagoland area in Illinois that you can now text 911 on your telephone. You don't have to physically dial it and talk on the phone. This could be very helpful if a person cannot talk. If there's an issue that they can't be vocal about it, you can text it. Things to remember though, when you do text, make sure that you give your location, exact location, and nature of the problem or issue. If you need police or fire, an ambulance, whatever. And again, location is very important, and keep the phone with you so the dispatcher can come back and ask any questions or any information that they don't have. So this is, we are one of the first areas around Illinois and Chicago that have this, and hopefully it goes into other areas of the state to help residents in case of emergency. And that's my report, Mayor.
Thanks, Trustee Costa. Trustees Rogers.
I have nothing to report.
Trustee Sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting for the Environment Committee, the Homer Glen's Lions Day tree was planted on Monday at the fire station on South Bell Road by Rick Gomez of Instant Shade. This tree is a hackberry, and the Environment Committee will have a dedication ceremony in the very near future. Last week, I attended a Links and Leverage workshop sponsored by the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, whereby Homer Glen was one of 17 villages that received a certificate for sustainability efforts. Some of these efforts included becoming a member of Chicago Wilderness, Tree City USA, attaining Clean Air Counts gold level, curbside recycling, our no idling policy, and obtaining grants for the Emerald Ash Borer and a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. Staff member Sue Stylen, along with Environment Committee member Randy Juris, also attended. Excuse me. Reporting for the Homer Harvest Days Committee. The October meeting for the Homer Harvest Days Committee was canceled. Our next scheduled meeting is on Thursday, November 3rd at the Township Office. Reporting as Vice Chair for the Parks and Recreation Committee. The committee is looking into various ways for accepting park donations from individuals. We are also working on names for the park, which will then be submitted to the board for consideration early next year. On a separate note, as a reminder, there is a special presentation and workshop on November 3rd at 6:30 in the village boardroom. Mr. Pete Pointer, a planning expert, will discuss shaping the future of Homer Glen for economic vitality and environmental quality. All board members, committee members, and all residents are urged to attend. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Sweet. Trustee Caprio.
Just a brief report on behalf of the Parade and Festival Committee. We are continuing to meet on the third Tuesday of the month. We haven't finalized the numbers from the 15 festival yet, but we will have those hopefully at our next meeting finalized, and we'll report the numbers then. Also, we are already in process of planning for the 2016 festival, which will be the last weekend of June. So we look forward to having another successful year of doing the festival and making sure that everyone in the surrounding areas, as well as Homer Glen, have an enjoyable time at that 16 festival. And that will conclude my report.
Thank you, Trustee Caprio. My report is, first off, we're going to start up the Community and Economic Development Committee again. So we're looking for volunteers to come forward, send us a resume, and we'd like to put this thing back together. The Community and Economic Development Committee acts as a recommending body which advises the village board and staff on planning for the economic health of the community, consistent with the goals established in the comprehensive plan. The Community and Economic Development Committee will address issues related to community development, for example, comprehensive planning, growth strategies and community services, and economic development, businesses retention, recruitment relations, and marketing. Any resident interested in volunteering to serve on the village's Committee on Economic Development are encouraged to submit via email or letter an explanation of why you are interested in serving on the CEDC and how you can contribute to the work. Also, please provide a resume listing your employment, education, prior experience in civic service with the village or to organizations to Village of Homer Glen. Attention, Mayor Yukich, 14933 South Founders Crossing, Homer Glen, Illinois, or at village@homerglen.org. Next would be Woodbine Area Regional Draining Improvement Project meeting. As you know, the village is continuing to work with the engineering firm H.R. Green on the completion of the Woodbine Area Regional Drainage Improvement Project and the plan and recommendations. I invite you to attend the community meeting tomorrow, Thursday, October 29th, from 4 to 7 p.m. in the village boardroom, which is here. This meeting will allow H.R. Green to present its findings as well as provide residents with the opportunity to give additional feedback. Third, shaping the future of Homer Glen for economic vitality and environmental quality. A special village board meeting will be held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2015 at 6:30 p.m. to hear the presentation by Mr. P. Pointer. Sharon already kind of went over this. This is important because it's 159th Street, so if there's anything that you're looking to see, your input is very important. The Mike Hike, the annual Mike Hike 5K will take place on Saturday, November 7th at the Michael C. Oliveri segment of the Homer Glen Heroes Trail. Participants can register online at mikehike5k.com. Proceeds raised through this event commemorate our local heroes while supporting improvements to our community trails and parks. It's almost done. Trick or treat hours for Homer Glen are going to be 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturday, October 31st. Residents participating in the Halloween are encouraged to turn on their outside lights. We encourage any children that are out after dark to have flashlights or glow sticks. And last, the Homer Stallions advanced to the Super Bowl. The Homer Stallions Maroon Super Lightweight team has advanced to the Super Bowl. They are 11-0 for the season and will be facing the New Lenox Junior Warriors this Sunday at 11 at Memorial Stadium in Joliet. This is a major accomplishment in the River Valley Youth Football League, and we would love to have as many spectators as possible as all 4 levels of the Junior Warriors have advanced to the Super Bowl, and we would like for our crowd to be just as big to cheer on the boys. That's my report for tonight. Let me see. Yes, Warriors Sunday at 11 at Memorial Stadium in Joliet. Did I say something different?
No.
Okay, Sunday at 11. Okay. So do we have a report from the treasurer?
Yes, Mayor, I have the Treasurer's Report of Cash and Investments at September 30, 2015. It's the 5th month of fiscal 2016. It shows the general fund with cash and investments of $4,796,724.12. The special event fund had a cash and investment balance of $96,897.26. Environmental fund had a balance of $33,906.38. The motor fuel tax fund had cash and investments of $2,170,721.38. The land acquisition fund had cash and investments of $23,541.80. The park and recreation fund had cash and investments of $2,655,319.57. The debt service fund had a balance of $1,586,102.53. Capital projects fund had cash and investments of $3,390,057.21. The EAB tree replacement fund had cash and investments of $485,025.09. And the final fund, this capital project bond fund, had cash and investments of $15,634,634.00, for a grand total at September 30, $30,872,929.34. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. Does anyone have any questions for John? Okay. Next would be the village clerk.
No report.
Next would be the village attorney.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Public safety officials. Village manager.
No report.
Next up is public comment. If you could please keep the comments to 3 minutes, we would appreciate it. We have 3 speakers. First one is going to be Dennis Gerwig.
Good evening, Dennis Gerwig, home Glen. I'm not going to discuss everything that I originally had planned on. What I would like to talk about is that flashing light by the Heroes Trail on Parker Road. That's a honey of a couple of fixtures out there, it really is. My question is, and I've brought this up at previous meetings, when is a light fixture going to be installed on 143rd at Pheasant, on a road that is twice the size as Parker, easily twice as busy? And again today, I saw a woman and her child struggling to get across that street because nobody gave her a break. It's a very dangerous crossing, and if any crossing in this village deserves a flashing light, that corner certainly does. And I think and this applies to the Parker light as well. I think the lens in those lights should be changed from yellow, because nobody pays attention to it, they don't slow down, if you change to red. And if a few times somebody's got to stop, that's too bad. We got the safety of our residents at risk here. And I think they should be changed, and I think that those flashing lights should be installed at 143rd and Pheasant, and there's probably a number of other streets that could use that as well. I've mentioned this before, and I've never gotten a response or reply from anybody, maybe because nobody cares. I do. And I'm going to pursue this relentlessly. I'm not going to let up on that one. I'd also like to know, if you know, who cuts the grass under the Edison lines south of 143rd? It's really well maintained. I talked to a resident over there today, and she says, a couple of the neighbors there, they cut it a little bit beyond their backyard, but not to the extent that it's being maintained. She thinks Edison is hiring the 2 grass cutting devices that she sees out there 2 or 3 times a year. Now you compare the south side of 143rd to the north side of 143rd, where the jungle is, and it brings up a question. Who's maintaining the south side? And why don't we get it on the north side? Or for that matter, anywhere else where that grassland has been neglected under Edison lines. The fuel tax. 3 cents a gallon. Chicken feed. On an annual basis, it amounts to, John Coy and I spend that much in a day over at Pelican Harry's. So, it's nothing. Okay? Well, I just heard we got $2.5 million in the fund. Why do we need to put a tax on the fuel? To some people in this town, that may be a little bit of a hardship. We got houses that are being sold by the sheriff's department because people can't afford to live here anymore. Like my neighbors that just moved out across the street. Couldn't afford it anymore. And we're going to throw a 3-cent tax on it. Like I say, it's chicken feed. But to some people, it's not chicken feed. So I would rethink that. Well, I was going to talk about the COLA raises. First of all, I'm going by a report that I got for the year ending April 30th, 2015, which shows we got, at that time anyway, 12 full-time staff members. And again, we're not talking about a lot of money here. We're talking about a policy which, in my opinion, is a crummy one at best. Of the 12 people on the payroll at that time, 9 of them were making over $60,000 a year. Of the 9, 5 were making more than $80,000 a year. And of the 5, 2 were making over $100,000 a year. With the benefits, those 5 were costing Homer Glen, just those 5 were costing Homer Glen $654,316 a year. These people may be well worth it, okay? I'm not saying they're not. The question is, did they need a 1.2% increase in their COLA when the U.S. government just came out and said living this year was cheaper than it was last year? But we saw fit at the August 12th meeting to give everybody a 1.2% raise. What the hell is going on here? Why would anybody do that? They're certainly not going to make or break their salaries. It's not going to make or break the community. But why? You got 55 million senior citizens on Social Security. They're not getting it. And a lot of them would love to have it because a lot of them need it. So I think the policy of COLA raises is fine when merited. I think the time of voting on these COLA raises should be coincided with the federal government's fiscal year, not the village's fiscal year. I also believe they should not be retroactive. You're voting for raises in the future, not given to the past. That's a union situation. We don't have a union here amongst our village employees. Again, you know, this is chicken feed money, but it's the policies that I think need to be re-examined. Okay? And again, I want to go back to that light, that 143rd. That light is needed over there, that flashing light. No question about it. Thank you.
Dennis, before you walk away, who'd you talk to about the light? Who'd you talk to about the light?
One of the village employees.
How long ago?
It's been a few weeks. Has something changed?
All right, well, I don't know. I will find out for you. I don't know everything that's going on here. That's why there's staff here to do some of this. But if it's a couple weeks, let me find out. I'll get to the bottom of it. I will call you.
But like I said, this is not the first time I brought that up.
Larry, you want to research that, or do you want this to come from the public safety committee? For us to research and see what we can do there?
Did you ever bring it? Did you ever mention it at Public Service and Safety? Because I know when I was on the committee, you were there all the time. I don't remember you ever mentioning anything on it.
I brought this up shortly after that fixture was installed and operating. So that's within, what, the last month or two? And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if it was at the safety meeting or at this meeting, but it was brought up.
Okay. Well, I will find out who you did talk to, but the next meeting, which is going to be in next week, I would suggest you going to them because they need to bring it before the board.
Well, I'll be at the safety meeting for sure.
Okay, and I have one other thing with the COLA raises. One thing you have to understand, and most people don't because very few people come to Village Hall. I'm here a lot more now as a mayor than I was as a trustee, and I can't tell you how many hats my employees and your employees wear. I've gone to many other places, villages, cities, and I've seen how full their staff is. We have one of the smallest staffs for 25,000 people in the south side. Most of them are 30 to 40 people. So if you multiply what we're spending on the 12 that are here, and a lot of them until 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and they are here at 8 o'clock in the morning. I have to actually come in and tell them, go home, because they're putting in way too many hours. So, and I don't even feel we pay them what they're worth right now, because I went around and checked other villages to see what they pay. We're way under scale. what people don't understand is you're not in here seeing exactly what they do and how many hats they do wear and the hours that they are spending here. Most of them eat lunch at their desk. They're worth a lot more than what we're paying them, but we're trying to keep all this money down. But they deserve actually more than what they're getting right now.
Then they should get merit raises.
Well, we're trying to get it to where it's fair for them, because you know what? There's not a lot of people out there that I have ever seen that are as dedicated as the crew that we have here.
I'm not doubting that for a minute.
Well, you know what? When you have someone that's in that position, you make sure that you take care of them because they're taking care of you. So I can understand with the government not doing it, but you can't compare us to the government. We are very fiscally sound and we are very frugal on how we spend money. If I have to pay someone more money to keep them here, because if I hire the next person, which is going to be a lot more money, I'd rather keep with what I have here right now because I know the dedication that they have. So what I would appreciate is if you do have some issues like that, you come to me and talk to me and then I'll show you exactly what it is. If you have an issue after that, you're more than welcome to do whatever you want to do with it.
But I don't think the COLA raise is going to make somebody stay or leave.
I agree with you.
Not at 1.2%. I don't think so.
I agree with you, but you know what? When they're a pretty good distance away from most of the villages and cities around here, sometimes just the acknowledgement for especially the salaried people that are here probably 12 to 13 hours a day, because I've been in here in the morning picking up some papers, sometimes 6:30, 7 o'clock, and there's someone here. There's times I come in here at 8 or 9, 10 o'clock at night. There's still people here working. They weren't gone all day. They came to work. They're finishing up with what they have to because we are short on people. And actually we are looking to put some more people on because we are having some growth right now. So I can appreciate how your concern is for the village. I don't want to pay your money away either. I think it's very important that we are very frugal on how we're doing everything, but just making sure everyone's getting what they're looking for. So,
let me make it perfectly clear. You didn't hear me say anything at all during my talk about the dedication or the work habits of the people that the village employs. My comment was the policy of voting on and passing a COLA raise. It should be coincided with what the government says. If the government says it's cheaper this year than last year, come on. I mean, you got gasoline for $2 a gallon over here. When's the last time you saw that? How many years ago since you saw that? So you can't tell me the cost of living has gone up. And it's cheap. Again, it's not about the money. It's the policy the village has in doing this. It's got to be changed, in my opinion.
we're working on it.
Okay.
Okay. Next would be John Lobick.
Good evening, John Lobick from Homer Glen. First of all, I would like to thank the board for approving me as historical advisor to the Environment Committee. And I think that the year 2016 being the 15th anniversary of the founding of the village is going to be a great year to launch some historical initiatives within the village. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next would be Jerry Sullivan.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Sullivan from Homer Glen. I'm here to answer any questions or comments in regards to the third item on the agenda for the lot consolidation.
Okay, when that does come up, if they have any questions, Jerry, they'll ask you, and if you have anything to say, you're more than welcome to come up.
Okay.
Thank you. Public comment is over. We're going to start with legislation and action items. First one is to consider for approval a motion to accept and receive the fiscal year ending April 30th, 2015 village audit.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll let you speak and then we'll have discussion.
Very good. Well, thank you, Mayor. Hopefully everybody has a copy of the audit report. What I'd like to do is go through real quickly, hit some of the highlights. If there's any questions regarding the audit, I'd be more than happy to answer. But it's a report of about 92 pages. It is for your most recent year end, April 30th of 2015. And it is, once again, a comprehensive annual financial report, which not many villages take the extra step to go that extra level. Actually, this report is the 13th year that, or actually last year was the 13th year of receiving the government finance officer's report of excellence in financial reporting. So ever since the village has been doing audits, we've been submitting these and being recognized. This report is also going to be submitted, and it's the expectation that we'll be also meet the high standards for that. But part of being a comprehensive annual report, there starts with a transmittal letter, which is basically an overview of the village, a summary of kind of the economic conditions, outlook. There's a very impressive list on page Roman numeral 3 going over to page Roman numeral 5 of all the different initiatives that were undertaken this past year. And there's talks about a lot of the different programs in street resurfacing. And then there's a little bit of talking about the internal controls and your budget controls and the independent audit. So it's kind of just a real high-level review of more of the villages as a whole as opposed to the specific finances. Then we get into the copy of the certificate from last year, indicating that April of 14 awarded that certificate, the list of principal officials during the year, your organization chart, and then we get into the financial section, which is really our contribution to this. What we're trying to tell the reader in this letter is that these are your financial statements. You, as the board, are the highest level of management. You set out the tone and indicate the direction for the village. Management staff takes those directives. Transactions are recorded, activities is represented in the statements, and then it's our responsibility then to come in and form an opinion. Do these statements fairly present your financial position and the result of operations? And through that, we go through and perform tests in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards in order to form an opinion. And that most important statement on page number 11 is that we feel that your systems are such that we can form an opinion. And on the following page, we state that opinion that we do feel that these statements fairly present your financial position and result of operations as of the year ended April 30th of 2015. So basically what's now referred to as an unmodified opinion. So the highest level of assurance as an auditor that we can provide on a set of statements, but we feel that what is in here does represent what has transpired and where you stood. So it's something you as a board would want to hear. I'm very pleased to be able to say that. There is some other information, some required supplemental information as well as other information and some comparative data, just try to make this a little more readable statement. And what we're saying here is basically anything that we could form an opinion on, we did consider, and we feel that in a whole, this statement is appropriate. There's some parts of the management discussion and analysis that talk about what's going on in this current year, and until the year's over, obviously we can't give an opinion, but we've read the report and we feel that is, what's in there is consistent. So all in all, a very good report, a clean bill of health, and I think you as a board should be pleased to hear that. Looking at that management discussion analysis that begins on page Roman numeral 14, talks about some of the highlights. As of the end of the year, you had a net position, or in the business world that would be your equity or retained earnings, of almost $45 million. Now that does include the capital infrastructure and those assets as well as the debt. From a governmental fund standpoint, you had an ending fund balance of a little over $30 million. And this past year, you did have an increase in your net position of a little more than $2 million, which is very, if we look at actually page numeral 17, I'm sorry. It does a comparison between the revenues and the expenses for this year and last year. And you can see that the revenues were slightly more than $12 million, up from 11.5 last year. But your expenditures increased at a much lower rate than the revenue growth. You were 9.4 last year, and you went to about 9.9 this year. So it wasn't a huge increase. There's a nice pie chart representation of those where the revenues came from. And again, the lion's share of them are what are called intergovernmental: the sales tax, the income tax, replacement tax. And then on the following page is a breakdown of where the dollars are being spent, and very consistent with the past. It was mainly the public safety, highways and streets and buildings are the lion's share of those dollars. On page Roman numeral 20, there's a summary of the budgetary results. And please say that in all instances, your actual expenditures were less than budget. So know that from when we look at the actual statements, the revenues didn't come in quite as what was expected, but what you have the most control over are the expenditures. And in all instances, you were below budget, which is really, you set out a plan, and the budget was balanced, and then you were able to achieve that even though the revenues didn't quite come in, because, you have to be sensitive. If the dollars aren't coming in, you can't spend the dollars. There's a little bit of discussion on Roman numeral 22 about what some of the things are affecting or will affect this current year. Fortunately, most of the projections that are coming out are that, the economy is getting a little bit better. There's been some growth, so the sales tax dollars hopefully will be increasing. Income tax dollars in the state, even though the rate is decreased to this, it was actually a year ago, that, people's income is getting a little bit better, so hopefully those dollars will continue. So from a revenue side, I think, you get a good base. One key thing is that there are no property taxes reflected in these dollars. The village does not have a tax levy for those. The actual financial statements begin on the numbered pages. Pages 1 and 2 is a little more detail of those summary information that was provided, where it shows that the increase this year, that $2,137,000 compared to last year's $2,074,000, so you get a slight increase. The fund statements, which are a little bit more relative to how the budget's adopted, a short-term perspective, shows that ending fund balance of $30,084,000, which is down slightly from last year. But if we look on page 6 and 7, the expenditures do include $2.5 million of debt, which does part of that. It was the final payment on the note that was due for the 355 interchange, so that's something that won't be reoccurring in the future, as well as some pretty significant capital expenditures that were incurred over the last year. So a lot of those are improvements into the village as opposed to just current expenditures. I mentioned the budgetary comparisons. Those begin on pages 9, and they go on for a couple pages. But as I mentioned, if you look at the total expenditure line on page 10, for the general fund, you were $514,000 positive variance as far as expenditures. The motor fuel tax fund had about a $2 million expenditure. That was mainly the capital project is budgeted in total. The actual this last year, about $600,000 of that was expended. But recreation fund had a $668,000 positive variance. So in all cases, things were stayed well within the budgetary constraints. Next part of the report gets into the notes of the financial statement. There's just a couple notes as you're going through and reading the report. Call your attention, page 25, capital assets, shows what was added and then what depreciation was being reflected in those first set of statements. The long-term liabilities are on page 26, showing what the future maturities of the debt. So basically, your debt will be fully paid off if no additional debt were to be incurred by 2023, and then the good news is that it's very consistent. There's not a big balloon payment that is going to be an issue to have to be addressed in the future. So the debt is laid out where it's your payments are pretty much the same each year. There is a discussion on page 28 regarding involvement with the IMRF fund for the retirement, and there's some additional information in the back. On the last note, it talks about new accounting standards that for the year ended April of 16, that the unfunded portion of the IMRF fund will be reflected as a liability in the statement. So actually, we'll have a little bit of a decrease on the net position of the village. But the good news is that as of April 14, that unfunded amount was, not that it's a small number, was only $428,000, where if you relative to other similar villages, other governments, that number is significantly higher. So it's going to have an effect, but not nearly what some of your neighbors are going to feel. There's some additional financial statements that, after the notes, more detailed regarding individual funds. And then the last section of the report gets into, again, what separates you from a lot of the traditional financial statements is the statistical section showing the different revenue trends, debt capacity, demographics, just a lot of 10-year trend information. It's interesting to see the revenues for the village over the 10 years have almost doubled from where we were 10 years ago back in '06. But it shows just a lot of real good information. So if somebody were to try to get a flavor for of the village, not only from a financial standpoint, but just a lot of useful information, this is a good document to refer them to. So before I get to the letter regarding the audit process. Are there any questions regarding the financial statement that I can answer?
Anyone have a question?
If not, the audit report I think is a strong report. It shows, the village is in good stand. Actually, in John's report, the cash numbers are actually up from where they were as of the end of April. So that's a good sign. But to be able to produce this document takes, a good system of controls and a good team to put the numbers together. And there was an additional letter that we provide that's referred to as a governance letter. It's to give those at the highest level of governance an indication of, the audit report tells you the numbers. This tells you how did the audit process go. And I'm pleased to say that there were no significant audit findings. There were no issues that were of any disagreements or uncorrected errors or omissions. That overall the audit process, John and his staff do a real nice job of getting everything together and making it possible. There is a list of the journal entries that were recorded in order to produce this report. Basically there were 4 journal entries, and 2 of them were things that came up during, after the close of the books prior to the audit that were given to us by John and his staff. So really, they're minor adjustments. So that's something that you as a board should be pleased to hear, because if there's a lot of adjustments, that means you've got issues with the financial process. Anything after that that's listed as GASB 34, that's really to get those front statements into the process. It's not something that you record in your books and records on a regular basis. So to have 4 journal entries, for an operation of your size, I think is a testament that the information you're seeing on a regular basis is consistent with what's in the report, and gives you some comfort that you can make decisions based on that information. So all in all, I think the audit process went very well, and I'd like to again thank John for his efforts, because this is his favorite time of the year. He just lives for the audit.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. McCormick? Thanks, we really appreciate it.
Well, it's our pleasure to be able to come and make this presentation, but to provide the services, and as things continue, and there's challenges out there, we try to keep John apprised of things. But if you board members have questions, please, if we can help, let us know.
Thank you.
Again, thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda. Oh, okay. Could you call the roll on it?
Trustee Darian?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Costa.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay. Next on the agenda is going to be consideration of a motion to approve the schematic design for the new village hall as prepared by Tria Architects.
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion, or do you want to wait till afterwards? Let's wait till afterwards. Okay. Where is Jim at?
They put me in the big boy seat. Oh, all right.
Thanks.
Okay. Jim, the floor is yours.
All right, good evening. Just want to take this opportunity, I had a couple of slides there, I printed everything out, so everything you will see up there is also on the 11 by 17 in front of you. But to kind of explain everything we went through, that what you see here is the existing plan of Woodbine. Our goals going in there was to be as efficient as possible with our layout, to be, as the mayor put earlier, frugal with everything that we're doing, with the understanding that every time that we affected a room, affected the kitchen, or affected any type of plumbing, everything costs dollars. So we can reuse things, it's made logical sense to keep certain things, move others. That's how we move forward, so you keep that in mind as we're moving forward. So the existing plan, I'm sure everyone's been in there, as you can see on the board here, I'm just going to use my mouse here to present. So main entrance, the pro shop was in the middle. As you went to the right, you started going up as a separate level. So halfway up was men's and women's bathrooms and locker rooms. As you came all the way up through here, the banquet room, the restaurant, I should say more of the restaurant and the private dining area here, the bar, And then behind them over here was the kitchen and then the back entrance. And as you went on the left side of the whole facility, you see there's more of the banquet rooms, the large banquet room facility, the warming kitchen that was there, and then the bathrooms and the bridal suite there that was for that side of the building. As we went through our plan, we tried really breaking this out so that there was a private versus public. So there's three entities. So private, what we're calling is City Hall, staff, administration, everything is in this light blue here that you can see. Community is in the purple. So everywhere community can enter is free for everyone to come in. And then the yellow is the sheriff's department. So as you move forward in this, and I will zoom in as you come in through the entrance. So walking in the main entrance, there's a balcony there. We kind of use that same balcony as kind of like the framework for a new countertop that would house, reception area there. And then as you enter into the administration area, there's areas for administrative offices, more desks here. As you went in, there was the village manager, mayor's office, a central conference room to be used in that area. And then we used the old banquet room per se, and broke that out into offices as you went down this area. So as you can see here, assistant village manager, village clerk, deputy clerk, across the way, future use. This one had a door, so we made this into a copy or file room area because that has access now into the administration's bathrooms. There's a future use office or conference room that you can have now, so there's room for growth. We went into the larger area here, which is a 2-story space in the banquet room. It's very difficult to actually make into offices, but with your building department and one of the larger departments in your administration, we're able to kind of put director of developmental services, deputy building official, chief building official, code officer, and then future use, all in an area because everyone kind of works closely together. And what works really well with this is that the side entrance that was going to the banquet rooms, now we can turn that into an open counter for the building department. So as much as there's a main entrance for everything else here, the building department, which probably receives probably more walk-ups, would be on the side, so it'll have its own separate entrance. We wouldn't have to bother anybody else and be direct with the building department. It worked out really well. And then as you continue down to the rest of the building, you can see a couple more offices here, economic development, planning and zoning, director of finance, developmental services inspectors, and all these offices can be rearranged in terms of who sits in it. We've all made sure it's equity across all offices as much as possible. And we're trying to design for the position, not for the person. So as we're going through this. So the main back corridor here, storage would remain, mechanical remain, and then the break room here. And that allows you a lot of future use, but you also have this entire area for future use. So that was the old warming kitchen. We're saying you don't have to renovate it right now. You can even leave the bar there. We'll just close off the wall. And then in the future, when you do expand and the home does grow, you can add more offices in there as you see fit, or however you may turn that into. As you come over to the community side, again, main entrance, you can come in here, go to the front desk, you can come up these, the ramps here. There's going to be a conference room out here. Anybody needed to use in the community or administration needed to talk to anybody outside here. The bathrooms remain. And then you come down this corridor and then one main entrance into what we're calling the large community room, board room. So here's the main area here. These dashed lines that you see here are the larger areas, the 2-story space. And we took out the private dining room and we put the dais along that side there. We can put audio-visual storage behind there, create a nice backdrop, have everybody sitting around, or if we're sitting here with the tables, we can this is still schematic design, we're still working out on the layout with everything. You can see how many seats we can actually fit in here. And then at the end of the day, once the board's not being used, these little half-height doors can be shut. And then this area can be used as a boardroom or a community room. And then with folding doors here, we can shut this building off, and then people can use this room or come down here and use a smaller community room with a little warming kitchen, just something to touch down and everything you have there, and then storage. And then you go into the sheriff's department. Again, this third entrance here worked out really well with it being a after-hours community entrance for the community room. You can get access to the bathrooms, but it also worked well with the sheriff's department where you can have a vestibule. They can come across the hallway for an interview room, and then as you kept going in a large open area, we can work out in terms of furniture layouts, getting into roll call reporting. There's an existing bathroom and toilets and janitor's closet there we're reusing, little kitchenette, lieutenant's office, mailboxes area, and then we still maintain that back entrance, so it's a separate back entrance for the sheriff's department. As we're going through that, so the next page is just a clean plan as you're going through it. So it's the same first floor plan. Page after that, I will zoom out. That is showing the basement area. Most of it's unexcavated, general storage in the basement. We're not touching. We've allowed some area there. If the sheriff's department needed to use any of the area in the basement, there's a lot of area there that can be used for future use. The second floor, which is access from the office, right now we're just calling it a spare conference room. We can renovate it and just use it for administration use to get up there. It's just an additional bonus space. And so everyone knows we weren't turning that conference room into a public space because of accessibility concerns and elevator and so forth. So it's just more just for administration. And then with that, I've got, let's see what I can get to. The last page that you see here is a depiction of what the existing plan is, and everything in red is what we're demolishing. So you can see how we're really minimizing what we're demolishing and what we're doing there to save the village money during this process and laying everything out. So the plan actually worked out pretty well with what we were doing there. So with that, I will entertain any questions. Tonight this is just a schematic design. This is the first of 3 design phases. This would be the initial kind of set everything in place. And then once we get approved here, we'll move into finishes, door swings, more of the details and so forth. And then the third phase is more of the engineering and more real detailed stuff that we probably wouldn't be so involved with.
For the community boardroom, is it approximately 102 seats or so in there, you think? That's about what I counted, but that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that actually will be bigger because with fireplace being taken out, we could put more chairs in there.
Yeah, I was just curious.
I think that, I don't know if this number's accurate, but actually right there, 118.
Oh, maybe I miscounted.
Yeah, so, which is, I don't know if that one's completely up to date, but yeah, you can always add more. Depends on the type of furniture you get, the type of seats. For larger meetings, you can do a lot more in there. You have the flex. The biggest thing is we're trying to give you the flexibility to use it however you want.
No, it is 118 with the dais and the 2 side.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 side dais. I wasn't counting.
I only see 8 seats for us up here. There's 9. Is that going to be corrected?
Oh, yeah, if you could.
We had a discussion there as part of the dais and the curve and everyone sitting on the side. That is part of the discussions of who would we actually have next to the dais and not next to the dais. I think our initial discussions, we were saying the mayor and elected officials with the attorney, and then potentially the city clerk, administration, and potentially the sheriff or anything on the other side, but that is still up for
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, so like right now we have 9 people. Okay.
I've looked at many plans over the past 15 years, and I'm just very pleased at how we were able to save so much money. And I can tell that just by looking at these plans, especially looking on the east side of the building. You know how we kept that there. That's a ton right there. What I'd like to, in general, and obviously not, keeping you to anything that any hard numbers, but in general, where do you see us going now in the next 6 months?
In terms of construction.
Construction, build out.
Our goal is, we want to fast track this. The building laid out beautifully with the entrances and everything kind of worked out really well. We're still on track for actually finishing the drawings in December, which means that you will probably be bidding. December is probably one of the worst times, obviously, with the holidays to get contractors, so we're going to have a little bit more extended bidding period, but hopefully have bids for you to approve in January and swinging hammers in February.
Okay,
if not the end of January.
So in general, if we start, putting hammers to the floor in February, where do you see us going after that?
You should be done, barring any unforeseens on the walls. That we don't see anything right now. But you should be in there by July, around July.
I know the upstairs, because it's not ADA compliant. And when I looked at the building, it has the potential, let's just say, if something came up, to put an elevator in there, correct?
We can always add an elevator in.
Right.
If you've been in that upstairs, it doesn't lend itself very well to any, because the ceiling pitches.
It's not real conducive.
It's not very conducive for any of that stuff.
But it's possible if it needed to be.
Anything is possible.
And Lieutenant Fitch, did you have? Is he still here?
Yes, he's back.
Did you have an opportunity to go through this plan with them? Are you happy with the way it's laid out? Is it going to be functionally feasible for you to?
Yes, it will. Yeah, we sat down about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and it looks very nice. Very nice. It's going to work out good for us.
Yeah, the only concern I guess I have, the interview room doesn't bother you having to just walk across the floor. I mean, there's not much we can do with it. But,
kind of the way it's laid out now and presented to me, there's going to be ample room. We should find ample room in the main section there, and if need be, then we'd be able to use that other room.
Okay.
As needed.
If you could see where the one connection is right here on the plan, at the end of this ramp, we've got a roll top enclosure, essentially. So that line, there is a step between this room and this back room, per se. So it creates a really great line for the community. This is where we put the door. At night, the sheriff's office essentially has control of this whole area. The community, if there's events, you can shut this door down, shut the administration with the security alarm on, and then community room, the sheriff's going to be on that side, they can be supervised at seeing anything's going on. And if they need to use that interview room, if they need to come down to this second interview room, they can use that room, they can use the large room. There's a lot of flexibility in the entire building, especially in that.
And I know we had kind of work around some posts in the conference room there, and does low ceilings, and obviously not ideal for what we want, but definitely something we can live with and function. Can you show the posts where those are located on here?
Absolutely. That's a very good point. Because we wanted to keep the community room and its more rustic feel, if I can back out here. So the two sides of the building that we were looking at, this side was community room, much more rustic, wood posts and everything. The other side was a banquet room, clear spans, very formal, higher ceilings and so forth. But when you started laying it out and saying, okay, let's keep what we have as much as possible. This side, so in this community room, in the large two-story space, you see these little squares here, there and there. Those are wood posts. That fireplace actually is right here. We demolished it in the plan. That post is actually in the fireplace, embedded in it. So you see these wood posts kind of everywhere. There's a lot of, in 3D, there's a lot of angles, a lot of brackets and so forth through there. So they're not in an opportune space. We actually tried one layout where the dais was here in a two-story space, facing that main entrance. But by the time you put in everything that you wanted to put in there, you got really close to that front entrance and just minimized the amount of seats in front of the dais. So as you come this way, you can see a post here, you can see a post behind that won't be in the way. Well, once you see these posts, you can see that the ceiling peaks. This is the peak of the ceiling along this line. So even right here, there's a post with some brackets off of it. So this area is a little bit lower. It's a drywall ceiling. This area then opens up a little bit more, it's still peaked, but you see the wood trusses, the wood timber. And then once you get into this open space, it's the two-story space, a lot more larger. There's 2 stories of windows on there and so forth.
And the kitchen that you have in there, you don't see that, you know, the kitchen to the, where is it at here, sorry?
There's 2 of them.
The new community room
The
kitchen?
kitchen that's over by the community room, you don't foresee that being like a fully functional kitchen, correct? Okay.
The intent with this, and it certainly can be wherever you want to take the community room in terms of hosting parties, cooking, and it's there, it's like the VFW. But if you start getting into fish fries and somebody's cooking, even if you had popcorn, you really start making an entire room smell. That's ventilation, it's fire suppression systems, you're doing a lot more to that kitchen. This is more meant to, if you have a meeting, you need to bring in catering, subs, sandwiches, anything like that, you can lay them there. You have a refrigerator to keep things cold. You have a sink if you need to wash down a couple things, but not meant as a full-service kitchen by no means.
So if I'm hearing you right, we could see ourselves moving into this at the end of the summer.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yes. You know, when I saw these plans, really happy, number one, and surprised and major changes from what we had just a few months ago. So you've done a lot of work in a very short time. Thank you for that. And of course, with a lot of hard work by staff and other trustees. I'm really happy to see the amount of how you fit everything in and how you change it. The amount of, the small amount of demo that there is of interior walls. You know, we're not talking about bearing walls, but interior walls. From what I was envisioning from a prior plan,
Right.
The demo could have been quite extensive based on that layout. But I do want to just make sure that, you know, that we all understand this demo may be of some walls and doors that are going to come down, but there's still other demo. You know, you have ceilings, you have electrical, you have lighting, things of that nature. It's going to happen, and probably electrical is going to be the most expensive. With right behind that, I'm thinking the HVAC.
Correct.
Were you able to, this is where my question leads, I'm sorry.
Sure.
With this big change in layout, you know, we have, I believe, 7 or 8 air conditioning units and heating units. Do you still feel that those can be utilized? Of course, maybe the trunk lines can be used, but more ductwork to fit into the offices. Do you still see us being able to use that equipment?
So again, with the goal of being efficient, that's where we were once talking about breaking up this area, the banker room, community room, into smaller offices where there's a couple of units serving this with large ductwork. So we're trying to just leave the ductwork in place, do it and everything. That way this room is one large room. We can keep the thermostats where they're at, kind of rework some things, you know, a little bit, but that room kind of stays as is. So there's a minimal, very minimal cost in terms of HVAC. Obviously electric to the dais and security and audio visual. When you get to the other area, which is the large banker room area, and you start talking about this, there's a couple of units, the ductwork's there, the ceiling's higher, so it's easier to drop that ceiling. We don't have to worry about space constraints in terms of bringing everything down. But the way the units are in the different sections, we can bring that down. The engineer's working on the best way, VAV boxes and everything to make sure that the outside offices have a little bit more control than the inside offices. So we're on a very sunny day. Obviously, you know, you're in the business here. The outside offices would be warm while the inside offices would be cold, and vice versa in the winter. So we're trying to give them a little bit more control so that the inside offices, they can maintain temperature throughout. If you see a lot of the glass here, we're trying to bring in as much glass possible. As you can see, these outside windows, bringing in glass through the deputy clerk's office, say, as an example, across the hallway and into this office. So since we do have an existing condition, we're trying to put in offices on inside partitions, inside walls, trying to filter in as much glass as possible, especially capitalizing on this 2-story space. We got 2 stories of glass over here, and we're actually putting on these 4 offices you see here surrounding that 2-story space. We're putting a lot more glass so we can filter in a lot more light for those offices and deeper into the office space.
Very good. Yeah, I think it looks great. Thank you.
Jim, I would say, I guess I would start by just offering a very high compliment for the work you've done on this. You and your firm through this entire process have been absolutely professional. And what I think is most important for the residents of this town is had a perspective from the moment you started on this design that was, and not just from our, I mean, I think everyone's aware of how much we try to save taxpayer money, but the design element of how every step of the way you and your firm were looking to save taxpayer money, which isn't always the case.
Right.
So I just think from a taxpayer standpoint, this is not only a great design, and compared to previous versions, such a better use. I'm sort of surprised, and this isn't meant to be negative to anybody else, but through the process, I think I've been most surprised by how two firms could look at the same, be given the exact same parameters and come up with such different plans, and one that, in my opinion, is absolutely bang for the buck for the taxpayers of this village. I think from the way the reuse in so many areas of leaving the bathrooms existing, right? Some finish changes, but work around the expensive things. To Trustee Costa's point about the demo, to the thinking in flipping the kitchen in the community room because of the expense in the basement of having to rerun some of that pipe. And so I guess I just make this point more for the residents of this town, the thought and detail that went into this plan of every aspect of it. Not only, you know, as I think as Jim said, planning for the position and for the future, but reusing so many things, comboing the community room with the boardroom, which in previous plans, those were two separate spaces, I think is a great use. And I would reiterate, I think the bang for the buck that the residents of this town are getting, the taxpayers are getting with a plan like this. And I think something like this sort of epitomizes Homer Glen. So to Trustee Rogers' point about the questions of the posts, which I know we discussed, it's not ideal. It's not ideal to have posts in the middle of the boardroom. If we wanted to go and spend tens of millions of dollars, like many villages do, to build a brand new state-of-the-art village hall, we could do that. We wouldn't have posts. It's going to be a minor nuisance. But I just think it's something like this that epitomizes, I think, the leadership that we see up here from the mayor and board members that have been here for quite some time, of a tough decision to change gears with architects, but I think we look at a plan that taxpayers are going to, I think if you judge by the results of this, from a design element to a bang for the buck element, this is, in my opinion, just a really fantastic plan, and you deserve a lot of credit for that, along with our staff who have put in more hours than I can even count on going back and forth and making this work from all sides. So. And the final thing, I think, to Trustee Rogers' point of, when I first came on this board 5-6 months ago and was walked through that building for the first time with the plan as it was, and I asked the question of, okay, if everything goes perfectly, when are we going to be in this building? And I was told December, if everything goes perfectly, December of next year. And I walked out that night and went, that just seems a little, I mean, I'm not in construction, but I know enough to know that just seems, well, as we're paying $19,000 a month for in rent, somewhere in that ballpark, I think, for rent in this building, the sooner we can get out of this building and get into something that we own and start saving those dollars. So on top of the construction costs, I think we're going to save on this plan. When we talk about a late summer timeline and getting out of this lease at $19,000 a month versus, you know, best case scenario, which was end of next year, I just think it's fantastic all the way up.
My turn. It has been an absolute pleasure dealing with you. You listened to what we asked for. Like I said before, we are frugal, and you put it perfectly just the way we're looking at it. everything that we have asked you for, you brought to us. You finally have the demo plans, so I'm real happy about that. We have already started some of the demo in the building. The bar is gone. A lot of the carpet's cut up.
Sorry, I had to.
Well, half the bar was torn apart in the first place, but now the bar is completely gone. The carpeting is pulled up in the community room area, and they're starting on the inside where the offices will be. The beautiful thing about doing the boardroom and the community room at the same time is there's very little work that has to be done in the boardroom. We're keeping it just the way it is right now. We're keeping it wood. We're going to obviously change the drapes because there's golf clubs on. We are going to be taking down the fireplace, so if anyone's looking for some stone in a fireplace, you want to take it down, it's yours. We are going to have it painted, and we'll put another nice carpet inside of it, so the community room will still, it's going to be a lot bigger than what it was going to be in the other plan. But it's going to be a nice big area where we can separate it to where if people want to go in there and use conference rooms, you can use those. And you can use either side of the community room because the dais will be separated from the other two. And as for the village hall, we couldn't work out any perfect. Everyone was looking for a window. We satisfied everything but two, but the two that don't have it, they look straight ahead. There is a window in the next office, and all the office fronts are going to be glass. So Jim hit it right on the head where everyone got their wish, and it's going to be cheaper, and we will have it faster. So I got to do the same thing. I got to give you guys kudos because you've done in 3 months what we've been dealing with for about a year and a half with the other company. So I thank you in the name of the village, and thanks you along with the staff.
Thank you. It's been our pleasure.
Other than that, did anyone have any questions on here?
Can they do priority to get the sheriff's people in there first so you have protection for the park?
We probably can get some from in there. There's no way we can finish it all up at the same time. We've been asked to move our staff into the building while they're doing the build out, but we're going to end up moving 2 times if that's the case, and that's not going to happen.
The ideal construction process would be receive bids, let a contractor go in there, demolish everything that is left to be demolished, have full reign of the entire building where he can lay down equipment, supplies, and so forth, get it all done at the same time and not have to work around somebody or quiet time or somebody's on there. So that'll actually make things go quicker if you can actually, because he can shut the power down to do something and not really turn, cut out
I'm
the
just
show.
looking at the security for the park itself, as quickly as possible.
Well, with him having the demo plans, we'll be back in there and start to rip this stuff down because this village is doing the tear down, so we save money for the taxpayers too. But we couldn't go any further until we had the demolition plans. Now we have them, now we can go in there and we can do what we have to, and like Jim said, there's certain things I'm not touching. I'm not playing with the electric. So we'll get the walls down, all the carpet will be up, lights will be taken down, the ceilings will be taken down. So all we're paying for is the final stuff that we can get hurt on. So it's going good. You got to figure we're going to be in by July next year, hopefully a little bit sooner. But if we were still with the other company, we'd be sometime late next year or the year after. So, any other questions? Okay, then we're done for that for right now. Yeah, I got the note here.
Jim, thank you.
So go ahead and call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse? Aye. Trustee Barry?
Aye. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is going to be, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 15-044, an ordinance approving a preliminary and final plan subdivision consolidation for Sullivan Subdivision, consolidation of lots 279 and 280 in Erin Hills Unit 40 Division. Commonly known as 14003 West Erin Lane, and 13611 South Erin Drive, Homer Glen, Illinois, subject to technical review and approval by the village staff prior to being recorded. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Costa, and second?
I'll second.
Please. Is there any discussion?
Just a couple comments, Mayor. It looks like, you know, from all of this, that there's an existing house on the corner, right? Erin, on the corner lot, lot number 280? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. That house is, I'm assuming, going to stay there? You're not going to put a house in the middle of this lot, anything like that?
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
One thing that I want to just make sure is because we have a corner lot on Erin Drive, Erin Lane, the address is on Erin Lane now. And, you know, if anything's ever done or like another driveway put out to Erin Drive, we have to stay consistent with the address for emergency services.
Okay.
We have had in the past, being on safety committee for a while, where a driveway's put on another lot and all of a sudden people are using that address is for something, so we don't want to confuse anybody. That's my only comment, just make sure, you know, please don't do that.
Okay, that's no problem.
It's for the safety of you, your safety, your family. Otherwise, thanks.
Anyone else?
Mike, can you explain the last minute change that you gave us relative to section 2A?
Sure.
Because I didn't have a chance to look at it.
Yeah, just there was one phrase added to the ordinance that you had in your packet under section 2A. It's a pretty standard condition that we've approved with other similar lot consolidations. We just wanted a condition added that the homeowner is responsible for extending the sidewalk. There's presently a gap because there's a vacant lot basically that's being consolidated with the existing house that's there. Just like you would, you've done in the past, you've had this condition in the ordinance where the applicant is responsible for within a year period installing that public sidewalk along the frontage of that lot.
Can you pull that up on the plat and just show us where that's at on the plat in the packet? Or no, you don't have it there?
I don't have a presentation. I mean, it's
okay.
in your paper packet. There is lot 279 is the lot to the west. That's the vacant lot. Lot 280 on the right is the house on the corner. And so they own both lots, and they're looking to consolidate. So they
right. I'm just saying relative to this change. Where am I looking at the sidewalk?
The sidewalk would be along the frontage of lot 279. So
oh, okay.
It would be in the public right of ways, and it I think is an 8-foot wide path, as I recall. It's a wider. It's a bike path and sidewalk actually in this subdivision. So there's a gap there right now, and there's no sidewalk there.
I see.
Okay.
And just like we would if a house came in and was built on that vacant lot, they would be required to put in the public sidewalk. So this is just a condition to make sure that it gets done.
Is there any other discussion?
Sure. The intent here is for a swimming pool.
Correct.
The easement was the problem.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And that's the plans for this secondary lot.
Right, we'd like to vacate the easement, put a fence around, you know, both lots and put a pool in.
Okay, if everyone's good with it, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Varian?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye. Okay, you're approved. Okay. Is there a motion to approve an administrative hearing officer fee agreement with Specia and Ayers Attorneys of Roth? It is understood that the village will be billed $190 per hour for travel time and for any work related to the administration hearing officer's duties.
I so move.
Trustee Suisse, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Trustee Varian. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just want to comment. The reason why I had taken it off the previous agenda was so that everyone has some time to do some due diligence in surrounding communities to see what they're paying relative to this. And we noted that they are paying higher.
They're paying more.
And in discussions with Joe, he also indicated that he felt that this this attorney was a better fit for the community as opposed to the other one, although you may say, oh, we're paying $15 more an hour for this one. I think you'll see a difference in the bottom line dollars at the end of the year, that there won't be a negative effect to it. And we're still paying cheaper than most of the surrounding communities. That's all.
Okay. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Barron?
Aye. Motion carries. Next one is number 6. Is there a motion authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with the lowest responsible bidder for work related to the completion of drainage ditches in the Hunt Club Meadows subdivision? So moved. Trustee Costa, is there a second?
A second.
Trustee Caprio, is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Barron?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Motion carries. Brings us into workshop items. First on the agenda, the first workshop item is a discussion regarding the establishment of a 3-cent per gallon Village of Homer Glen vehicle fuel tax to be designated for Parks and Recreation Fund activities. Finance Director Sawyer will provide a brief overview of the proposal, and then we can discuss this.
Thank you, Mayor. I did look at a 3-cent gas tax in the context of a designated revenue stream for Parks and Rec. As a home rule community, you have the ability to pass a local vehicle tax. We have 7 open and operating filling stations, and if a 3-cent tax was imposed, the gallonage would be around 30 million annually, which would equate to around a $900,000 gasoline tax. As a village adjacent to a county borderline, we have a disproportionately high ratio of non-residents purchasing gas in town. So as a pass-through tax to fund a recreation activity, this would be quite appealing, I think. It's a non-invasive way of generating some funds for Park and Rec. It is a tax on the delivery of fuel into a retail gasoline station. It's fixed at 3 cents per gallon. It's not a sales tax as a function of the selling price of the fuel. And it's something that the village would administrate by having the filling stations file tax returns with the village. And if you'd like me to answer some questions or pursue it further, I'd be happy to.
Does anyone have any questions on the board?
How many gas stations are in the village?
There's 7 open gas stations currently. Actually, I did I used a couple assumptions to calculate the amount of fuel delivered, estimated at about 30 million per year. I also did an analysis where if I assumed every house had 2 cars that filled up in town, and it would equate to about 30% of the fuel that's currently consumed annually here. So it's truly a pass-through tax.
So what you're saying is basically 70% of this 900 is coming from people who don't live in Homer Glen, correct?
That is correct, yes. What a terrific way to fund recreation activity.
I'm assuming the numbers you used were pretty conservative as it relates to...
Yeah, I had another model community where I was able to develop some ratios based on sales tax and local and gallons. And I brought that in. It also is a border community, so it's built off of that. We still have there's 2 other filling stations that are currently not operating. That doesn't include those. So I believe they're fairly conservative numbers.
I also believe that they are conservative based on future development. I mean,
Certainly.
I'm sure we'll see at least 2 more gas stations come in, if not more. If not more.
John, do you know of, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mayor. Go ahead. John, do you know of any other surrounding communities that have a 3 cents
I haven't surveyed the, the surrounding communities. I know that Orland Park resides in Cook County and it has a 5-cent excise tax. So my feeling on pass-through taxes are not to hurt the merchants. And with that advantage, I'm not sure that would occur.
Are you saying this is tax on the delivered gas, not the pumped?
That's correct. It assumes everything delivered is sold, but it actually is imposed at the delivery point. And it's considered an excise tax as opposed to a sales tax.
Okay. With the question that was raised before, why are we going to put a 3-cent tax on it? We could have gone up to a nickel, but we didn't feel we had to. What a lot of people don't understand right now is the state's in serious trouble. They are already holding all our MFT money, which is designated to a specific account, and they're not freeing it up. They want to hold back some of our sales tax, and I got a feeling that once they do, we'll never get that percentage back. We don't have a municipal tax here. We need something to keep the village running and let the residents of this village prosper from some of the things we can do. Parks, recreation, acquiring land, this is all stuff that is not funded. So we have an opportunity here to fund all this to where it does not, for 3 cents a gallon, if we had to put a property tax on it, it's going to cost you a heck of a lot more than what 3 cents per gallon of gas is going to run. And if the state does follow through with what they have, we need as much coming in as possible so we don't have to put a municipal tax in there. We have a lot of things that can be done in this village. If we start improving some of the stuff that we do have here, we will have more businesses coming in. And that's what we need right now. We need some business here to pay the sales tax to keep this place going. We also need the businesses and homes coming in for property tax so the schools don't keep taxing us more and more money. If we can get the businesses in here, there's no effect on the schools. It doesn't hurt a school one bit if we had 100 businesses coming in, because all they do is they collect property tax and they don't have to put anything out because there's no kids coming into the school. If we don't do something soon, there's going to be nothing left for us to have. If you take a look at New Lenox, what they've done in the last 4 years, there's a lot of business out there. We have a great opportunity right now to continue with what we're doing. We've got next level 355. We're not that far from 80. We're not crowded. We're not overbuilt, nor will we ever be. So all we're trying to do is put some taxes on that a lot of other outside people, it's the same thing with a cigarette tax, it's the same thing with any kind of tax. We're trying to get it to where it's not coming out of your pockets. And if 3 cents is too much, well, I'm sorry, but that's something that does have to go in.
You mentioned land acquisition, and I'm reading here, it says discussion regarding the establishment of a 3 cent per gallon Homer Glen vehicle fuel tax to be designated for parks and recreations and funds and activities. And you mentioned land acquisition, and I just want to make sure that the community understands that that's one and the same.
That is one and the same, because if we're trying to get parks going and parks for the village, we have to buy them. If we have to buy them, we have to pay for them. So the land acquisition would fall within this too.
And that's something that we just changed fairly recently, right? We moved that?
Yes, we did. We're really getting away from the land acquisition fund. It has a small amount of money in it right now, but we're migrating away from that and using the capital project fund and the park recreation fund for land acquisition. So yeah, that was recent, within the last year.
So any other questions?
Yeah, one more question. I mean, each year we budget a certain amount to go into the parks fund, is that correct? Our annual budget?
Yes, and the revenue stream from parks is the developer contribution, which is has been good. It's irregular. It's based on inventory of buildable lots, and that is the revenue stream. Realistically, the money in the park fund came from the general fund.
Right, through the...
through our equity transfers over the years.
Okay.
And we all know, or well, I'll say, we probably won't be doing a lot of general fund equity transfers in the near future.
Right. Yeah, and again, as the mayor pointed out, what's happening in the state and the taxes, we really don't know what's going to happen 30 days from now.
Well, they're holding taxes, but they will retain more tax than they have before. It's just a matter of how much and when.
Right. So whenever we get the developer contributions, that's still going to go back into the park fund.
Absolutely.
And again, if we anticipate what's going to happen with the state and with taxes being held, or possibly a percentage less to the municipalities, this is a good opportunity for us to fund. To put money into that fund. Now, as we all know, I mean, we have a 100-acre park there that we're going to start planning on, and we're going to need substantial money coming in to start developing that park. So this
Yes.
would be a good revenue stream for that.
Yeah, it's not. I don't consider this regressive like a property tax or a utility tax. It's a pass-through tax. You can choose to buy your gas in town or not. And with that significant amount of non-residents funding it, there probably won't be a better source in the near future.
John, your model says 70% roughly paid from people outside of town.
Yes.
The 30% in town, have we run any numbers on what that would mean for the typical?
Well, the 30% assumes that there's 8,000 homes with 2 cars that purchases all their gas in town, 12 gallons a week for each car. That's where the 30% came from off my, out of the model. So that's probably fairly conservative too.
So that says 12 gallons a week, 2 cars per household.
72 cents a household.
Yeah, so.
Well, the pricing of fuel is abstract. It's really driven from the petroleum marketers.
Sure.
Not necessarily directly related to the tax in a gallon of fuel. So I don't have a crystal ball, but this is not a lot. Time will tell if it passes, if it actually affects pricing. It may not.
Mayor, do we have timeline that we're considering? Some sort of action on this on a board? I mean, obviously tonight is just workshop.
It'll come back to the board next week, or next meeting, to vote it in. So we're looking, the soonest would be December 1st, otherwise it'll be January 1st.
The mock workup I had was January 1 for some of the literature that I had with it, like the fact sheets. This would, because it's on delivery, would have a tax on the inventory of fuel also, because it's based on fuel received. Just the one time when it's imposed.
I guess I would just say, this is something I certainly have an open mind to. I just think enough time for feedback from the residents on any time we're talking about, and again, I know I've mentioned it, and we've all mentioned it multiple times, of the bang for the buck that I think taxpayers get from this town, from the staff level on down. So again, I have an open mind on this. I just want to make sure that we give ample opportunity for feedback from the residents, because I do think asking residents to any extent for additional money out of their pocket, and again, I agree that if we're looking for a revenue source, this probably makes more sense than any other potential revenue source out there because of the out-of-town amount of money. My only point is I just want to make sure we have enough time for feedback from residents on any time we're asking for additional money out of their pocket.
Well, that's why we brought it up tonight for workshops, so this way it does get out exactly what we're trying to do and what we're doing it for.
Okay.
How do we want that feedback to funnel back to us in general? I mean, obviously, if they want to send an email, what's the best email for them to send it to, so that there can be a point person that then gets it out to the rest of us, instead of one person having to send one email to 8 different people?
Anyone who would like to comment on this can send their comments to village homerglen.org, and then that will get sent to staff, and we will funnel it through to the board.
So anything that goes to that email address will definitely be forwarded to us.
Absolutely.
One last comment just to put it in perspective. 10 gallons at 3 cents a gallon is 30 cents. The gas prices fluctuate frequently enough, and we've seen that year over year. So I applaud you for your forward thinking and trying to get some revenue somewhere where we can put it into the parks and recreation and land acquisition.
Okay, next on the agenda, the second workshop item is discussing regarding the 159th Street Improvement Project and possible inclusion of a sewer and water line. This would include the potential construction of the 159th. Oh, I thought you said question. Okay. The potential construction of the 159th Street sanitary sewer and water main from the Cedar Road to Galver Road to service areas between 159th Street and 151st Street. Development Services Director Sean Lewis will provide a brief overview of this project, and then we can discuss it.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, if some of the board members may know, several years ago, the board approved contracts with McDonough Associates to initially put together a feasibility study for a sanitary sewer to serve the area basically bound between 159th and 151st, north and south, and then Cedar Road, and actually just a little bit east of Cedar Road, and then Galver Road. McDonough Associates put together a feasibility study for the sanitary sewer, looking at a couple different options for different routes to serve this area. Ultimately, it was decided that the best route would actually be along Fittiman Creek. Actually, let me put that. Everybody has a copy of this exhibit in their packets. Basically, the best route would be kind of following Fittiman Creek, which is the lowest area, and in order to provide a gravity feed sewer, that would be the best route. It would be most likely the cheapest route as far as you wouldn't need any kind of lift stations, force mains, things of that nature. Lift stations are very expensive and very maintenance intensive. So this would provide an opportunity for all areas along 159th Street and even along 151st Street to potentially connect to this sewer and provide gravity feed. Since we didn't, at that time, the board didn't continue anything further, but as the mayor had mentioned, this is something that we're looking at again to provide sanitary service to this area. What we had done is, HR Green, we had asked them to provide an updated cost estimate of what this sanitary would cost based on 2015 dollars. And we're looking at a little bit under approximately $1.8 million, not including the 10% contingency. They have provided an estimate because McDonough Associates never completed the plans, the phase 2 plans. So if we were to proceed with this project, that would need to be completed and bid documents would need to be generated. HR Green's estimate to do that work was not to exceed $20,000. Ultimately, if we were to go forward with construction, then there would be construction engineering costs as well. And then finally, there is also a cost dealing with the Forest Reserve, the Will County Forest Reserve District. In the previous negotiations, there was a $1.6 million cost as far as easements through their property, trees that would need to be removed. Now, this project would include in the old growth areas, we would need arborvitae actually underneath those trees. So this project would limit the amount of trees that would be removed as much as possible. Obviously, some trees would be necessary to be removed, but again, the intent was to limit this as much as possible. A couple service line or extensions would be extended from this line that would tie into the back, basically the north property lines of a couple of those properties along 159th Street in common areas so that multiple properties can connect to that. It would be their responsibility then to go ahead and provide their sewer connections to this trunk system. This would be a village-owned system. It would connect to the City of Lockport's Bonnie Gray treatment facility. It's my understanding that they have, in the past, have already expanded their treatment facility to accept this area. This is within that FPA, the facilities planning area for that treatment plant. So, and we have had, in the previous, we have had negotiations with the City of Lockport as well, as far as connections, what they would require for connections, things of that nature. The cost of this sewer would be, any kind of costs would be ultimately recouped by connection fees, tap-on fees, things of that nature. Obviously, that's something that would be needed to be negotiated. As part of this sanitary sewer, what would also be needed would be a water main to serve that, basically that same area. Right now, this is probably the most opportune time to build a water main. 159th Street is well under construction right now. Basically, what we would be looking to do would be to put this water main underneath the bike trail that the village has already approved with IDOT and actually has paid for the majority of it. The bike trail is on the north side of the 159th Street right away, so this would be a perfect location for the water main, as really there's no utilities in that area. And since we're going to be maintaining the bike trail, we would also be maintaining the water main, would be our responsibility as well. Again, this the estimates for the water main based on April Green's numbers is approximately 1.5 million, 1.6 million with contingency, and of course they've got they have provided us with a contract proposal for $89,000 for the design of the water main and bid documents. Since when we did the sanitary sewer several years ago, no plans were actually ever generated other than probably this exhibit for the water main. So this is something that would need to be done. Since 159th Street is, of course, under construction, this would definitely need to be fast-tracked because we need to get this in before they get too far with their project. I did have a meeting with IDOT officials today. This is something that they are favorable, that they would be willing to go ahead and allow us to install the water main. Basically, like I said, it would definitely need to be fast-tracked because we do have permitting through IDOT, we have permitting through EPA that would be necessary, and we also have at least 4 to 5 pipelines that we would be crossing as well. So, and again, this water main would serve those areas, the same areas that would be those front properties along 159th Street, allowing those properties to develop.
Okay. So everyone knows over the years, at least for Trustee Costa, Trustee Suisse, and myself when I was a trustee, we were asked to put the sewer system in multiple times, but to put it in before we had any business coming in could have cost the taxpayers the money. So we wanted to wait till we had an end user. The price when this first came out was 11.5 million, and then we had the 1.6 for the forest preserve, so we were at 13.5. Right now, if we do our calculations right, and they should not jump all that much, we will be at a little over $5 million. We recoup every penny on tap-on fees. And what it is, the reason we're going with it right now is there's property on 159th Street that one 5-acre lot was sold. A gas station is going in on the corner, and there's going to be a hotel that comes in next to it. But the rest of the property is still all open. But it opened up the door. We have businesses coming in. We won't get them if we don't put the water and sewer in. So they're coming in, it's going in, they're paying us a tap-on fees, and now we have a chance to start building up 159th Street. So in essence, it's not going to cost the village anything or the taxpayers because it was taken out of the bond, because the bond was set up for 159th Street improvements, and the tap-on fees will put all that money back.
Okay, as Mayor Yukichin mentioned, I was one of the trustees that was involved in this from the beginning with getting the engineering firm doing these studies on the various alignments. I will be honest, all this information came to us 4 or 5 years ago,
Mhm.
My memory
It
serves me
started in
right.
2009 to
Right,
2011.
so I remember large portions of it. I would have to look through my seal boxes at home to see if I have all the information from back then. But I think it's important that this board get that information so they can truly understand these alignments and why we're going to go through that. Also need to know, I believe there was a creek crossing, again, that would be directly bored into the creek.
Correct.
At 1 or 2 points. But also on that, there was so much discussion and reasons why at the time that the study was done, and this has been pretty much on a holding pattern, as Mayor, you could said, we want to see that businesses are going to come in. If we done this 4 or 5 years ago, we would have expended millions of dollars, and there would be a sewer under the ground right now in the water line, but no, all this time we would have been paying for it. So I'm happy to see that business is starting to come through, and it looks like there's a possibility that it is. One of the big questions I have, and I think one of the big sticking points for the board at that time, is that the businesses, or I'm sorry, the landowners from Gauger Road and 159th Street on the north side of the street coming to the east, have they all annexed into the village now? Is all the paperwork signed on that?
That I am not aware of all properties.
Okay, so again, just want to make sure everybody's aware of this. We would be putting a sewer line and a water line through property that is not annexed into the village. It's on township property, is that correct?
The majority of the sanitary sewer was actually on Forest Reserve property. There were 2 properties that we would need to, I think they were looking at either easements or obtaining that portion of the property. I'd have to check to see what the status of those, if those ever were finalized. The water main would be all within the 159th Street right away. So, and then obviously with the tie-in on the construction of 159th Street, our costs would be greatly reduced because we wouldn't have to do any kind of restoration work. And of course, traffic control would be, for the most part, covered with 159th Street construction as well. So
I do remember a conversation a few years ago when they were talking about 159th, and I was all in favor of putting that water line with the construction, because it could save our community a few hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Correct, it will.
Possibly. If the water line and sewer line is going through property, or going to go in front of property that's not annexed in the village, can those properties still tap onto the water line, or do they have to be annexed in the village? And, we've heard for 5 or 6 years that we're going to recapture all this money with tap-on fees. Can somebody tell us, or right now tell us that that is guaranteed?
I think
Because
some of
there's
the...
always negotiations when a development's going to come in and say, well, I'll put it here if. We've seen that with other businesses, we've seen it in other communities. So I don't want to go under the premise of voting on something saying that we are going to recapture $5.5 million guaranteed of taxpayer dollars, with the understanding that some of the properties are not annexed into this village, and that there's a possibility we won't capture this money. So we need to know what happens.
Yeah, I think some of those questions would definitely be the village attorney, as far as, probably the recapture and the accusations and that sort of thing.
That's all I have. I have many, many other questions. I'm sure the trustees have a lot more, but I would like to at least get the information that we had with the final studies to this whole board as quickly as we can.
Sure.
Because I think if you at least look at the section views, the sewer line is really important. Actually, they both are very important. But that's the one that I think there was more controversy on and discussion on, because we're going through forest preserve and wetlands and things of that nature. And I think if the trustees have an opportunity to see the section views of the sewers and the different alignments and see why some of those digs would be, you can't do it.
Some of the digs were like 40 feet.
The alignment A is really the right way to go, but I think they need to see this on paper why. Because they can get a lot of questions asked of them. They don't want to just vote on something on a plan view. I think it's important that we get that in for all of us, get that information again to go through that whole study and all the drawings.
Sure, we can get that as soon as possible.
Any other questions?
I have a question, because I'm not an engineer, so I want to try to understand this. Okay, that sewer line is horizontal, and you said businesses or something, or maybe a subdivision would tap or would connect to that. So
Yeah.
are you talking about horizontal lines, and then some of this would be going through the forest preserve again?
Well, what the original plan had included was, obviously, this area here is kind of the main trunk sewer. At a couple different locations, I believe it was somewhere in this vicinity right here, and then somewhere, I think somewhere back over here. Basically, there was going to be a couple of service lines connecting off of that, so that it would kind of come to the back of these properties on 159th Street and back here, so that it provided them an access to that sanitary sewer. All of that was included in the original design as far as it went. So, I mean, as far as tree removals or whatever, and like I said, everything, at some point, there has to be some kind of, stubs in order for those properties to connect to.
Yeah, we, like trustee Costa said, we do need more information.
I mean, is there any, this is an off-the-wall question, is there any analytics that would tell us, and somehow tell us, if another community has done anything of this magnitude, how long those recapture fees would take to recapture? How many years? How many? Yeah, I mean, obviously you need to bring business in to want to tap on and things of that nature. So I know there's not an exact science.
I mean, we don't have the information, but again, that's something that the village attorney and
there may not be an answer.
Well, you don't know how fast the business is
Right.
going to come in.
Right.
I'm sorry, if I can one more comment. In the narrative with this, there's a statement made that I do want to agree with. We talked about this a while ago, is that that the village is interested in constructing a water main within 159th Street right away. The window of opportunity is rapidly closing. We have to take that statement very seriously, because I think it is that is important, because that is going to save us a lot of money by putting it right away while they're doing this work.
Correct.
It's really important for us.
And it is very rapidly closing.
Yes, it is.
How rapid?
Probably in the spring, they're going to start switching over traffic. Our estimates are that we could potentially, if given the go-ahead as soon as possible, at least with the water main, we could potentially get construction begun in April and get this thing done possibly by June, July. But once you get to a point where they start shifting or doing more construction there and shifting traffic over, then it's pretty much it'll be a problem.
So how fast of a decision do you need from the board?
As soon as possible, unfortunately. I guess I don't know if I can give you a specific time frame, because what's happening, the construction is very kind of fluid. Right now, even IDOT has no exact time when they're going to be shifting traffic, and they're kind of bouncing around, because some of it's also utility-based too. Utility companies are doing their relocates right now. IDOT is going to be getting in there as soon as possible and starting their work. They probably won't shift the traffic till early spring, and that would be, we would have to coordinate our work with their construction as well. Our contractor would need to work with theirs, but they said that was something that could be done. But again, the sooner we get started, because we don't know how long the IDOT reviews are going to take. We don't know how long specifically EPA is going to take. Normally theirs is up to 45 days, but sometimes it is more. If there's issues, it could take longer. And then, of course, the pipelines we're going to be dealing with.
And before any of that can be done, going to the various agencies and government entities, we have to get engineering done.
Correct.
So that all has to be done, and then hand deliver these drawings and try to get everything in motion. So it's going to be critical that I feel, my opinion, that we look at this relatively quick within the next month. Try to get all of our questions and answers. I mean, to look at it and make a decision within a month. We can't make the decision tonight.
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely weren't expecting a decision tonight, but
the decision has to be made and get
potentially even, if it's possible, even sooner. Now, I did talk to, like I said, I got a proposal from HR Green for the engineering. In our meeting with IDOT, they're willing to provide the CAD files for 159th Street and the geotechnical data to us. If, depending on what the board's decision, ultimately, if we can get a decision, if the board decides to move forward, at least with the water main, and if they decide to go with HR Green's proposal, they would start getting, if they get, I guess, kind of an inkling that we would go forward in that direction, they would actually start getting some of the footwork and legwork going and collecting the data and kind of start getting this thing at least rolling. Their estimate, I know in the supplement sheet I've got listed $96,000 as far as for engineering bid, design and bid for the water. I did work with Akram and they've lowered that to a not to exceed amount. It's just over $89,000. So they're willing to work with us and try to get some costs, lower the cost a little bit.
Any other questions? The biggest concern right now is the water line. That's what we got to get the approval for. We don't have to worry about any land. It's all in the easement, so, and like Trustee Costa just was saying, that's going to be the most economical time to have this put in is while they're tearing it up. So, with that being said, workshop's done. Do we have any old business? Any new business?
I had one item there.
Okay.
You know, our engineering for the stormwater issues in and around Woodbine is well underway. Tomorrow night we have a meeting here to see where they've been at. All along through this whole process, we were talking about the importance of having engineering and drawings done because those are going to have to work in conjunction with the park planner. I really feel right now is the time that we get an RFP out for a firm to start working with our Parks Department to start looking at planning for this park. By the time we get the RFP out, get the information back and pick somebody, we're looking at a bit of time. It sounds like, it looks like they're going to have the information they're going to need at least to get going on this thing. I'd hate to wait until springtime and start bringing someone on board. I'd like to get this moving as quick as we can. Also along with that, once we get a firm on board and go to the Parks Department with our Parks Committee with this, I think it's important that our co-chairs from our Fest Committee work closely with the Parks Planner and the firm and the Parks Department. As we talked about a few months back, there's a possibility the Fest is going to move from its original site to our property at Woodbine, possibly at Woodbine. And there's not many areas there where you can fit a Fest. So I think it's important that we would work with the firm to show them the area that the Fest would fit, where it could go, so that those plans could be incorporated and nothing would have to be changed at a later date. But for that Fest, we're going to need to move relatively quick on that too. And for the park, that's important.
I actually have that down here. I would agree that I think it's time to get a park planner on board to work contiguously with the engineer so that we don't move ahead and then find out that we have to go back because, you know, we missed something.
That's all I have. Anything else? Okay, I need a motion to move into executive session. Motion?
To discuss position and personnel.
Correct. I'll make that motion. Okay, second. Roll call, right? Voice vote. Yep. Roll call.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee Cabrio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Mayor, can we have a 5-minute break or so?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to double check the words that you had mentioned during.
You're getting close, which is another call to order. It's going to be pretty much regular meeting, but we have a quorum here between the trustees and myself. So by law, we have to open up the meeting, so we'll send the boundaries we're supposed to be, and then it's all over. So I need everyone to stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, if you have any questions, we have these three gentlemen here to answer anything you're looking for. If you have any questions for the trustees or myself, we're here to pretty much answer everything that we can. Right now, as for what's going to go on in the park, we don't know yet until we get done with what HR Green is doing, and then we can address what we're going to do. And we are also in the process of putting out a request for a park advisor to see what we're going to suggest. Other than that,
You have a presentation, Cheryl?
Yeah, it's a very short presentation, and later on throughout the meeting, as more people come, we can get it.
Okay.
so
Will there be
actually,
time-
if you want to turn your chairs, because it would be a lot more comfortable than wrenching your neck.
Will there be time to ask questions after the presentation?
Sure.
Because I think maybe a lot of the questions will be answered during the presentation, but there may be questions that we have afterwards.
Okay. All right, yeah, I'm going to be here at least till 6. So any questions that anyone has, they can ask anytime they want.
I've been sitting all day.
So if you guys want to go ahead. Go ahead.
We're just,
There you go.
all right. All right, is this on?
Yeah, you might want to raise it a little.
Where you can hold it.
Yeah, you can hold it. It's easier.
There we go. Better? All right. All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Logan Gilbertson. I work with HR Green, and today we have Jared Oliver and Akram Chowdhury from our company with us. So, throughout the entire open house, please just feel free to stop any of us, ask any questions that you may have, and we'll be more than happy to help you. So today we're going to be providing an update on the project going on in the Woodbine area. So, just a reminder, our project scope was to study the areas around the former Woodbine Golf Course. This included portions of the Pebble Creek Subdivision, Saddlebrook 1, Strather Ridge, Woodbine itself, and then Woodbine West, as well as the adjacent roadways. Now, our study went a little bit beyond that, just based on drainage divides, but these are the areas that we focused improvements on. Really quick, the area that we're looking at is located right here relative to the whole village. And many of you know this is the area we're working on. The first step in doing a drainage study like this is to determine what the existing flooding problems are. Now, to do this, we met with village staff and highway district staff. We also looked at photos of past events. We reviewed the topographic data for the area, and then sent out a questionnaire that many of the residents have responded to. And it was very good return on this. We sent out about 450 surveys and got, I believe it was 150 back, 34% response rate, which is almost unheard of with this type of thing. So we used all of this information to generate an XP swim model. This is a drainage model, and software is called XP swim. It takes all of the drainage areas, determines how much flow comes off of them, and lets us model storm sewers, ditches, and detention ponds, and everything like that. So the model was calibrated using everything that we received from the residents in the topographic survey. And then we went through and determined what storm event, whether it be your everyday storm or a 1% chance of storm, what people call a 100-year storm, if that's what was causing flooding. So we used something called a two-dimensional modeling in the Woodbine subdivision alone, because this area has a lot of low-lying areas that don't have an overland flow route. Now, some of the exhibits that we've seen up here will show more, depict the results of that model. So, some of the past events that we've seen. This is not a nice scenic lake up in Wisconsin somewhere. This is actually Eagle Ridge Drive in Greenlee. That's a lot of water to be in the residential area. This is looking south. Those power lines are along 151st. So that's a pretty major flood in my book. So we kind of knew what we were dealing with. We looked at our topographic data, and we were able to determine where all the drainage divides were. And just quickly by looking at this, that past photo made sense to me. It has a lot of area from agricultural land, the golf course itself, all draining through a neighborhood that may or may not have been designed to handle that amount of flow when it was first designed. I believe some of you have seen this exhibit before, but it's just reiterating that We've got large drainage areas coming into the neighborhood. On here, anything that's yellow or orange is high area of elevation, it's a hill. And then all the blue and green areas are a little bit lower, blue being the lowest. Something that's important to notice on here is that we have two streams. They are no longer actually streams through parts of the neighborhood. They may have been piped or put into an under drain. But one stream used to flow through Woodbine, through Pebble Creek, and then out through Culver Park. And another stream flowing from south up through Strathler Ridge. And both of these eventually drain into Long Run Creek. Now it's important to note that there's two separate streams, and the divide between the two is actually this line right here. So anything that occurs on the Woodbine former golf course will have no effect at all on anything west of that divide line. So our resident survey had a good response. We had 34% return, and we took all that data and mapped it out on this exhibit here. We have it up here in the center. We went through and determined if people were having yard flooding, those were depicted in green. Yard and street flooding, here are the residents, those were yellow. Basement flooding, which was orange. And then if they were having structural flooding, yard flooding, just everything, they got a red outline on their property. Now, it's very important to see here that we had a very tight cluster of people responding in Woodbine, which was expected. We had a lot of residents also in Woodbine West and Strathler Ridge, and then a few up in Saddlebrook Run. But they were a little bit more sparse, and we have proposed improvements to also address any of these concerns over here. So we put together our drainage model, and this is using that two-dimensional feature that I mentioned, where we can actually see flooding on this ground. This is modeling a one-year storm, and that means that statistically there's a 100% chance of this storm happening in a given year. It could happen on a Monday and then Tuesday back to back. Doesn't mean it'll happen only once in a year, but it has a very good chance of this occurring. And you'll see that the detention pond in Central Park fills up with water, so you know that the model's actually showing water on the surface. But we're also seeing, just in a one-year storm, at the intersection of Eagle Ridge Drive and Continue Lane, some flooding in the street and also in the residential backyards here. We modeled a 2-year storm, which is a 50% chance of happening, a 5-year storm, and you can see the extensive flooding getting bigger. 10-year storm. Now it's worth noting here too that today, if a storm sewer is designed, they're generally designed to handle the 10-year storm without any flooding on the surface. So you're just seeing here that the storm sewer isn't operating properly at the moment. Going up to a 50-year storm, this only has a 2% chance of happening. And again, just because if it happened a couple years ago, it doesn't mean we get 50 years until this happens again. And the 100-year storm, which is what you hear a lot of people referring to as like, the flood of record. This storm is showing that all the yellow areas here are about 1.5 to 2.5 feet deep, and those are in roadways. So that's unpassable for a car. And this is also impacting structures for a storm of this size. I think that's actually modeling at 5.3 inches of rain over the course of 3 hours, which is a very intense storm, but at the same time, it could happen tomorrow, basically. All right, so now we've shown what's going on out there, we looked into some solutions. 2 primary ways to manage stormwater. The first is to detain it. This means that we're storing it in detention ponds and releasing it more slowly so that downstream pipes and ditches don't become overwhelmed and flood streets. There were 2 locations identified on the Woodbine property, the former golf course. They would be well suited to have a detention pond, and we've modeled the proposed results, and we're just, they'll be recommended in the report. But these locations have been identified in the Long Run Creek Watershed Plan as locations that could be used to restore wetlands or create amenities. They will actually improve water quality and help Long Run Creek as a whole. So these basins will be designed to be visually appealing. They can be incorporated into the overall park plan. So we have a lot to work with. This is actually an example of a naturalized detention basin. And this is a really good example because there's currently open water out on the golf course, or former golf course. We're showing native plantings around the sides. You can incorporate lots of wildflowers, and actually hiking trails can be placed around here. You can do a lot with these type of basins. And then around it, you can use a wetland-style detention basin to actually help alleviate flooding. Now this doesn't look like your typical mowed grass rectangular basin in the neighborhood. These can be made to look really good and actually improve water quality throughout the whole watershed. Second solution is conveyance to help the water move through the area more quickly. This is including storm sewers, ditches, swales, things like that. We've gone through and modeled primarily the entire storm sewer, starting at Culver Park all the way up to 151st Street. And we've identified a few locations in there that could be improved upon. We've also looked at locations in Straddle Ridge Estates that have been identified as good places where we can improve on the drainage system. And then throughout the entire study area, there's multiple smaller projects that would be a simple swale or ditch that could help with alleviate some yard flooding or occasionally some street flooding too. So from here, the next steps are to finalize this report. That will be done by the end of November. And then from there, the village can review all of our recommendations. And then after that is done, final design and construction documents must be made before any construction actually occurs. And then from there, we're expecting that construction on some of these select projects may begin by mid to late 2016, assuming the design and construction document preparation goes as planned. So with that, we'll open this up to questions. We'll probably give this presentation again later on if you'd like to hear it again. But for now, we have myself, Logan, we have Jared here, and Akron, who can answer any questions, and Mike as well is very up to date with the project. And then from here, we can just discuss any specific concerns that you may have or questions.
Well, I have the two that you want to put in, would be in addition to what we have already, or we're going to make some of the ponds that we have deeper and bigger?
These would actually be restoring wetlands that used to be there prior to the golf course coming in. They would be expanding the footprint of the ponds, or we'd be maintaining the open water that's already there. That open water is already, it's filled up volume. It doesn't assist with any flood control as is. So within these detention basins, we can actually expand on that open water if that's something that the village wants to pursue, and making an amenity such as a fishing pond or anything that would be sought after throughout the park design. It can be made larger, however you want, but that open water doesn't really assist with the flood control. It's more helping with the park. And then the areas around there, we can do the wetland plantings and naturalized basins. I've seen these before where they have like a raised boardwalk going through a wetland, and then planting with lots of wildflowers, and generally people like them.
The one pipe that's on the east side of the golf course, not quite the end of it, probably 40, 50 feet forward. It actually goes through the backyard of one of the neighbor's yard.
This pipe here?
It's probably right in there.
Okay.
That's the line they put in from Saddlebrook. And was that sized right, or is it undersized?
We would certainly have to take a look to see what the original plans were versus what was actually installed. What that was is the detention pond for Saddlebrook was actually constructed on the golf course property. And that's the detention pond. It's a dry basin pond, and it's at the northeast corner. I mean, that's something that we would just have to verify size-wise.
Well, the pipe that they put through the backyard of the gentleman's house, isn't that what's supposed to grab the water that's for having a flooding problem at?
Well, actually, up here we're not having many flooding problems.
No, but I mean, where you're showing the flooding now, where you've got the flood.
Right here?
Where does that, there are streets that was there?
Yeah, so the drainage system through here runs, the main trunk line runs along Eagle Ridge, and then through Center Park, and then through Pebble Creek. This is a branch off of it that serves to drain, this is Saddlebrook up there. So that drains Saddlebrook and then runs through and down here. That pipe we're showing isn't having very many problems right now, particularly because it has enough slope. When you get down to Eagle Ridge Drive, a lot of this street is pretty flat, and therefore the pipe needs to be relatively flat underneath. So when water spills out of the storm sewer and it's flat ground, it spreads out very quickly, which is why a lot of the photos that you've seen of flooding in this area, if you've got 6 inches of water, it can spread out for 100 feet. And 6 inches of water is basically curb to curb, and then if it's 0.5% slope on the roadway, it'll really take up a lot of space.
So, are you suggesting if that's the case with putting some berms and just building up some areas, you would have to build it on the outside of the streets or more of this container into the street?
Well, it would be addressing the storm sewer pipe itself.
And that would be up at the front of the golf course?
Actually, a lot of the things that we've found where there are pinch points in the system are right along here between the boundary of Woodbine and Pebble Creek. Right there's a section of storm sewer that we feel if we make, in the big picture, was a minor improvement, we can actually make a pretty big impact on the flooding in the area.
And then that would go to the...
and then that goes into the Culver Park detention pond. And
that would be able to handle it?
The study has been checking that for everything we propose, that this basin would not overtop Parker Road. So we have the existing elevation of that pond during a 100-year storm, and then every time in our model that we change a storm sewer system or add a detention pond upstream, we're making sure that it doesn't negatively affect that basin up there.
That's actually good to hear.
Yeah.
Because this could be an easier fix than a lot of people are concerned about, and especially for other people who do live there, that is where it is for rain.
Yeah.
I've had some emails that have texted to me and sent to me with the pictures of the water at their steps. So.
Yeah, we've gone through and trying to find the simple solutions before we start proposing more brilliant solutions.
Logan, you have a question?
May I ask, I'm Pam Myers from Homer Township. I know we're talking about Sunder Park, and I apologize that I was a little late getting in. And you were talking about, are you talking about increasing capacity to this Culver Park pond?
It's actually the storm sewer system through there. We wouldn't be bringing any new water to it or anything.
Okay.
Part of our proposed improvements, if detention ponds are added in the golf course, it would actually put more detention upstream of that pond.
Yes.
But opening up the storm sewer systems through there so that they don't bubble out onto the streets is one of the things we're proposing.
Because I thought I just heard you say that you've tested the levels at the pond at Culver, and it wouldn't put any more water on the street, because we've already had several events, and managing the parks, those two parks, I can attest to them personally and with photos, where the water, after the village did earlier improvements to the storm system in Woodbine and increased the flow into the Culver Lake Pond, the pond has actually approached the sidelines of Parker Road on a couple of events.
Yes.
So I'm a little concerned about that, and also in Sunder Park, we have been doing gradual phased playground improvements and stuff, so I'm sure I missed if we're going to be doing any excavating or anything in there.
We are not proposing any new detention in Sunder Park, because we have seen that new playgrounds are being constructed there.
Okay.
So we would not be adding anything to the detention pond there.
Okay.
Any excavation that would occur there would be to adjust the storm sewer system to either relay the pipes at a different slope or increase the size of them.
Okay, but inside the park perimeter?
Yes, there's one storm sewer that we're concerned with. It flows underneath the parking lot, actually, at the end of Eagle Ridge Drive. And that's one of the main pipes draining out of the Woodbine subdivision.
Okay,
and that would be a repair of the angle of the sewer, right?
Well, we'd be modifying the slope,
Yeah.
and then probably modifying the depth as well.
So that's something, how long would that take to do that project? How long would it be dug up in other words?
Oh, storm sewers can be installed relatively quickly. I've
Okay,
seen pipes go in the ground. This is about, I think it was 250 feet of pipe, and I've seen that type of stuff, go in very quickly in the course of 1 or 2 weeks. I've seen it take longer than that, depending on things that they run into. If there's conflicts with other utilities, it's very hard to tell right now. This is a conceptual planning stage.
But it wouldn't be moving, it'd be the existing pipe would be adjusted. It wouldn't be like you'd have to.
We wouldn't be moving it to a different location.
Okay.
So it'd be a repair and restore situation. So
It
you,
could potentially change the size of it, but yeah.
right.
We-
So
we'd
you're
be
just gonna
using-
work underground, do what you gotta do, and then you're gonna restore the site.
Yes, it would be restoring anything at the surface to what it was before.
Can you go back and show the picture of the flooding that, that was taken in the evening? Okay, that's my house. Right. So this photo, believe it or not, is not something unusual. And I'm not kidding. This has happened, I moved in 1994. And I have seen this at least a dozen times since 1994. What is the plan to try to alleviate this issue?
Well, part of what would alleviate this,
You can go back to the map now. I can show
Yeah, where is
you
that?
you know where that is. It's going to be on the southwest corner of Eagle. Yeah, right there. That's
right
it.
down
That's
here.
it.
So I agree. What's happening there is Greenleaf right here drains to the west down to Eagle Ridge.
Yes, it does.
There's a high point in Eagle Ridge right along here. So this is draining to the south. And then we also have some flow from 151st that makes its way in here.
Correct.
Immediately south of 151st is a large drainage area. However, there's a wetland down there that detains most of that water. So it's not causing a very big problem. But some of the solutions to this would include modifying the pipe through here or potentially adding some storage upstream. As I mentioned, there's really two things you normally do to treat stormwater, and that's hold it and release it more slowly so that the pipes can handle it,
right,
or increase pipe size.
So,
however, when you increase pipe size, you need to think of the people downstream.
Right.
So,
and I understand, you could drain Lake Michigan if you could, put it through a straw. You could eventually, do it. It would take a long time. So I get that. The pond here, that's basically in our backyards, okay?
This pond?
Yes.
Yep.
You talked about adding or enlarging the size of that in order to alleviate some of the flooding. Is that a viable option? Is that what you're referring to? And then slowly leaching that into the system?
it would not be directly modifying this pond. As I mentioned, we don't want to modify any of the existing surface water out there because, as it becomes a park, those ponds can become an amenity. Walking trails can be placed around them. But what we'd be proposing is, next to it, there's some relief in the ground elevation where we would fairly easily be able to excavate out a detention pond.
Can you show me where that would be?
The place that we've been looking at for a solution is right here.
Okay, in the middle of the fairway there, on the par 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And please keep in mind.
And that is lower land there, that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, please keep in mind this is all still conceptual. The report has not been finalized or anything, but we are on track to have it completed by the end of November.
And could you show us I think you mentioned the addition of, the potential addition of two ponds?
Yes. As I mentioned, with the Long Run Creek watershed study, it identified actually the northeast corner of this pond up here as a location to improve water quality throughout the entire watershed. We've partnered with Applied Ecological Services. The author of the Long Run Creek watershed plan is actually, he works for them. So he's partnering with us. And, yeah, Steve Zimmerman. Yep. So this northeast corner up here is already a low-lying area. So it just makes sense. It has a lot of area draining to it to expand on the natural, low spot there. If we dig it out and grade it properly, you can make so that every time you get a little bit of rain, it'll fill up into a large wetland area that is planted with all native plants, and that'll supply them with all the water that they need. And then it'll slowly drain back down through the sewer system.
So that's the wetland you were addressing?
Yes. Yeah.
But I thought you addressed the addition of 2 new ponds.
Well, another basin would be in this area that we were thinking about.
Okay.
And that would also be planted with native plants. In the bottom of these basins, since the soils around here, they're pretty firm, they have a lot of clay to them. Wetland plants would do well in the bottom of the detention basin here.
So they're both not, one of them's a wet pond and the other you're just talking wet land.
Well, it would be wetland built around the existing wet pond system. And as I mentioned, for park improvements, if those wet ponds want to be expanded upon for anything, they can do that. And it would not affect the drainage of, the performance at all.
So can I ask, so it sounds like you're not increasing on-site capacity for stormwater, other than that pond and wetland, you're...
Leaving the existing former golf course, we would not be modifying the pipes leaving there at all. In reality, adding detention up there, you don't need such a large pipe. So the ones that are there, when we add the storage upstream, the pipes that are there currently will be more adequately suited to convey that water.
Okay. Because, the township, on the other side, on the west side of the old golf course, we still have a huge, we've tried a lot of things to bring our water that was coming off of the golf course onto the sports complex. We've increased detention to the west of us. And, as you know, the highway department has it as well. But we still have a lot of runoff coming off of the golf course on the east side of our property. There's no way, there's areas that are so wet we can never really get into them. And so I was kind of hoping, it looked like this would be the western perimeter of Woodbine Golf Course. It looks like they've tried to put like sort of a wetland plant area along that fence, but I've also seen the siltation into the parking lots and stuff where the water overflows, and even just this summer, and backs up into that parking lot. We share that common perimeter there, the fence and all of that. So I was kind of hoping that you might have seen, some issues on the west side of the golf course as well.
Well, since that it's a sports complex up there, we didn't have a lot of residential, input from that. But I believe in this exhibit right here, up there, it's a little difficult to see through the colors.
Yes.
But this is the border that you're talking about right there. Okay. It's the west side of the golf course. And there are a few areas there where you do start to get concentrated flow. But in general, it's all up on the high end of the golf course. It has some topography so it can flow away. It's not going to pond up to be 2-3 feet deep before it has somewhere that can go. So as far as building a detention pond, building it on top of a hill doesn't really make much sense because you don't have a lot of area to drain into it. Building on the northeast corner up there, we've got almost 100 acres draining into it. And on the southeast corner, there's about 27 acres draining into it. But if we were to design the storage facility up at the top, you might have a few acres.
So you feel that perhaps, even though, I've always been told for the 100 years I've lived here, I know I look good for my age, but that everything goes from the east to the west. All of our water is working its way down to this Plains Valley, to the river and the watershed there. So you're saying that you feel that maybe some of the issues I'm speaking about on the west would be alleviated by going to the east and into that northeast corner of the golf course?
Well, if it's located up here in this area, the solution would be to convey it into that pond, which would be swales. And swales and things like that could be, incorporated into the park improvements. In that area, since, just doing a topographic review, it's at the top of the hill. Like I said, it isn't flooding anyone's homes.
Right.
We didn't identify that as a high priority improvement.
I see. Well, and again, maybe it is something that you can take a look at. If you were to walk out into the golf course's parking lot there, you will see probably, I don't know, Mayor saw it with me too, maybe 10, 20 feet worth of siltation in the northern part of the golf course's parking lot where we have had some rainy seasons, but the actual dirt has worked its way all the way into the parking lot. So even though it's a library and even though there are sports fields and stuff like that, it would be greatly appreciated if you could take a look at trying to manage some of the water areas there.
Some of those, some of that area too, obviously when they go to do the design and improvements for the overall park property, some of those things, obviously, depending on, you know, what they put there, you know, at that time, the drainage for those areas will be reviewed, and, you know, any, you know, if there's any problems, they can certainly be, you know, addressed at that time.
Pam, I might be able to shed some light on the situation there. If you want to bring up the golf course there again on that corner, when I met no, the other one, the larger photo that shows the sports complex. Yes. Okay. Now that west side of the area that Pam is referring to is the west side fence line of the golf course where it meets the complex. Yes.
Exactly.
Right there. I met with Jim Ludwig, and when they built the golf course, they were in need of one more pond. And the designer of the golf course told Jim that we could either put another pond over in this area along that's a par 5 right there,
Yeah.
or we could put dry retention in.
Yeah.
So Jim didn't want to put another pond in. They decided to put the dry retention in there, and the parking lot and the clubhouse have drain tile that goes out to that dry retention area. So what Jim Ludwig told me was that if that area gets built up, you're going to end up with the situation that you referred to where the silt is silting into the driveway and the clubhouse, which is now going to be the new village hall and parking lot there. So that whole area was drained in that direction in order to keep the clubhouse and the driveway dry. So that's what you're looking at there. So that's something that you guys are going to have to obviously figure out how to solve it or move it or deepen it or something.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that it looks like it already has wetland plantings and stuff in there.
Yeah.
But it's actually higher than the parking lot that I'm talking about,
Okay.
which is probably why it is sort of eroding and stuff, but it's obviously not functioning correctly. And maybe it is high, but then we're lower, you know, and so there you go. There's that balance there.
All right, we can look into it.
Thank you.
I thought you were writing down to.
Thank you.
Great. Well, and this is an open house, so if we want to just discuss any specific questions or anything, we can do that too.
Are you going to be putting any sewers in the backyards of Durrell Lane?
I'm sorry, I don't know all the streets by name. Right?
It's the,
Next to Center Park.
yeah, it's the back.
Separates Woodbine from Pebble Creek there to the north.
Okay, there is,
That blue.
yeah, that blue line.
No, yeah,
that-
way over.
Which way?
The northwest of that, northwest corner of
Yes, northwest corner,
Woodbine.
Oh, up here?
right there. That my house is in there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Pebble Creek
Pebble
Drive.
Creek is 4 or 5 feet higher than us.
Behind us.
We put in retaining walls. I have drain tiles down my side, zigzag through my backyard. Retaining walls in front of my deck and my patio. It's like a river down the sides of all of our yards when there is any kind of rain. My sump pumps, I have alarms. It's insane back there. Our
Well,
yard.
it's because, the houses in Pebble Creek are behind us. And we think half those, there's some pumps.
Their sump
draining
pumps
into our
are draining
backyard.
into our backyards.
It's raining.
Okay.
Course of action for that.
So the residents over there discharging their pipes
Well,
into your?
you know, their houses were all there
Before us.
before our bill.
And when
You know.
that street was put in, they are literally 4, 5, 6 feet higher than us. So everything comes
That must be the
down on us in our backyards.
south end.
And if you're watching in the sidewalks in front of our houses, on either side of my lot lines, that is always wet. It's stained, it's always wet. Then when it freezes up there, there's always water running into the sewers in front of them. Always. And all summer
Between the
long.
golf course and Pebble.